CSC151-0, whatever it is your class on. It's either 1, 2, or 3. So I made a goof. I forgot to actually turn sound on last time recording this video. So here we are. We're going to fix this. So you're seeing this right here. This is an example of what it is we'll be doing. But let me just start all the way back to the beginning here with JDoodle. Yes, let's go back here. So this is JDoodle. Or more specifically, let me shrink this out to see what you guys would actually see. You guys would see something like this. This is JDoodle. There's a bunch of different pictures you can go, different types of coding you can go with. What we're going to do is we're going to go with a cloud. We're going to go with a Python 3. So here's what you'll see. You'll see code up here. This is the default code that starts. And then you have this execute button. Click the execute button, and the code pops up down here, the result of it. So right now what we got is we got x equals 10, y equals 25, z equals x plus y. So z is, 10 plus 25. And therefore, when it prints out, the sum of x plus y equals z. What was z? Z was x plus y. What was x plus y? 10 plus 25. So it went out and figured it out and decided it was 35. That's basically right here is basically the same kind of concept that I'm going to go over in this class, but I'm going to go in a little bit more depth. But first and foremost, before we get to that, it's a cloud-based account, so you can just go in and say hi, whatever. You just log in with a Gmail or any email you want. And there's 3 little buttons right down here. Click those buttons. You can go to New Project or My Project. So and Save, so you can save things. So under My Projects, you can go and pick different things that you've done. So for example, I was doing some testing tic-tac-toe here. Open this up. And I got, let's take a look at some tic-tac-toe board here that I can make or whatever. And then I can have all this sort of stuff right here. And I don't think this particular version of tic-tac-toe actually worked, as opposed to the one that I eventually wound up making. But let's just see what happens here. Do you want to be X or O? X. Player will go first. What's your move? My move will be 5. Okay, so it does actually remember it with the code of actually, and the AI actually works too. Okay, cool. So, yes, in theory, this is the type of stuff we could be doing in, say, this class. Now, at this point, this game is completely, it's going to be a draw, so it'll just, we're just going out and basing this on, there we go, and, boop, it's a tie. Would you like to play again? No. And the game will just end at that point. But that's the type of stuff we could make with, Python. So, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to go and start to a new project, okay? So new project, clear all, yes. So what I have here is I have myself a blank page. And whoops, let me zoom into 200% here just so everyone can see it. We're going to start off by doing something very simple. And that's just simply making a print statement. So we're just going to go with print. And basically, you notice how the word print turned purple? That's telling you it's an actual function of this program. Print means something. It's a specific word with specific uses. So what print is going to do is it's going to print it out to the user. It's going to show up for us to see. And whatever is inside these parentheses right here will be what gets printed. So if I were to simply print hello world, you notice I put hello world in quotes. That's important. It'll execute and will print out the words, hello world. The quotes are text. They indicate the beginning and the end of text, the beginning and end of a string. If I don't have the quotes around it, it means error. It doesn't understand what invalid syntax is. It's looking at this and going, print what? Hello, I'm looking at an object. World, I'm looking at an object. What is hello? What is world? If I have the quotes around it, it realizes, okay, you want me to literally print these characters. The computer does not understand English. It does not understand words. It understands data. These quotes are what tell it this is just a string to print out. A string, what is a string? A string is just random series of strokes. It could be numbers, it could be symbols, it could be anything. But it's characters that you press on a keyboard, and it would print out as long as it has those quotes around it. Okay? So when I say print hello, it is in fact printing the word hello the way I want it to be printed. if I get rid of those quotes, it now thinks hello is an object. So when I try to print it, it goes, object, name hello is not defined. Well, that's one of the situations where I can go and say hello equals 4. And now it will print out and go and say 4. Because it went and said, oh, you're printing hello. What is hello? Hello is equal to 4. So what this is right here, this is a variable, okay? I want you to imagine a closet in a room, or a drawer in a closet, or a drawer in a chest, or a box that you just put stuff in the attic. It is a place where you store data. And as long as the place that you're storing the data is named the same way as the place when you're using the data, the computer will be able to find the data you put inside of it. You could put a string inside of it. You could put, blah, 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 and you can put that inside of it, and it will also work the same way. You could have that string. You could have numbers inside of it. You could make it a true or a false and make it Boolean. You could make it, a floating point number by having a number with a decimal point. You can have many different types of things inside a variable. You can, in fact, have multiple things inside a variable. So if I have that, and I have this, and I also have this, now there are 3 things inside hello. Whoops, where'd you go? Where'd you go? There we go, we're back. I have 3 things inside hello. So when I execute it, I will then print out all 3 things. Thing 1, thing 2, thing 3. But I can also simplify this and go and say, I only want thing 2. And execute it, and it will only pick the second one. Now, note, the second one is actually the third one because it goes 0, 1, 2. But that's above what we're going for right here. That's beyond this first lecture. Okay, I'm just saying you can store many, many different things inside a variable. A variable is going to be our bread and butter of it. So, what is a variable? Okay, first and foremost, you're probably going, what is this green text? Because if you've noticed at this point, color coding, this program likes to try to color code things based on the type of data they are. Well, you notice this hashtag? That's what's known as a comment. So, anything that's in this green text is going to be skipped by the computer. I can hit execute, it's not going to do anything. Okay? So, it's going to just keep going and going. There's no actual code happening here. So, it executed in 0.972 seconds. But a variable is just a place to store data. Okay? And save it for later. Okay? So if you need to remember something, like say you're trying to find a password, you probably will need a variable for your password, or your username, or both. Now the other thing is you probably want to name things that make sense. If you're looking for the total, so if you're looking for, name things that make sense. If you're looking for the total amount of money, you should probably name it like total, or sum, or money, or, something that makes sense. You could name it Lava Rainbow Jenga Pieces Porcupine Honey Badger USB Charger, but will that make any sort of sense when you actually look at it? No, probably not. So name things that make sense. And here's an example. So if I were to say example, and I'll use an underscore here, example string, because this is my example of showcasing strings, and I just say this is hello world. I know that this is a string. This is my example of a string for this class, and there it is. It's hello world. So if I were to go and simply print out hello underscore string, oh, whoops, not hello string. It would be example string. See, you gotta remember what you name things. And execute, it will print out hello world. Now, but once again, what if I typo? If I put a lowercase e instead, technically this and this are 2 different things. So when I execute this, it will not work. So you also have to make sure that you are case sensitive. You need to make sure that you are exactly case sensitive. You need to make sure that, what you type in is exactly the same thing. At the same time, what happens if, let's just say, delete that, copy C, copy V, Command C, Command V, copy paste. What happens if I call example string before I define it? If I hit execute here, example string was not defined. Remember, the computer reads line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. It goes in order. So at this point, on line 8, I just said, hey, go grab something out of example string. But the computer has not found example string yet. So it doesn't know what it is. It doesn't know it exists. Even though it's right down here, the computer hasn't found it yet. So right here is an error. And remember, it will try to tell you, name example string is not defined. It will try to tell you and go, hey, I couldn't find it. It will try to tell you what the error is. So you also need to make sure that you are making sure you define something before you use it. Okay? So now execute. Now that they're back in the right place, it will go back and work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and just, say example integer. What is an integer? An integer is a number. It's a whole number. And I'll say example float. What is a float? A float is a floating point number. So a number with a decimal point. It's a larger number, takes up more data. And I'll use example Boolean. What is a Boolean? Well, a Boolean is either true or false. Oops, and I need a capital T there. True. It can either be true or false. This is the logic of all computers. Remember? Binary, ones and zeros, yes or no, true or false, on and off. The words you're specifically looking for in this coding are either true or false, capital T, capital F, that sort of situation. But yes, there is, whenever we get into coding, the if statements, it's either on or it's off. There is no in-between, maybe, kinda, sorta. So if I were to say print, in this time and this, I say, this is an example of a print statement. Now, once again, you'll notice we've got our green text, we've got our black text, a purple text right here, red text right here, blue text right here, purple text right here, purple here. All these things that are color-coded are trying to tell you where data starts and ends. So this blue text is the start and end of an integer. This red text is the start and end of a string. This purple text is the start and end of a function. These black text right here is the start and end of my, variables. Okay? It's trying to tell you what this is. So if you see something and it doesn't look right or the same color, you probably, forgot to have an ending point or something. Like maybe you forgot to put the first quote there. Something like that. If something is looking wrong, then what that means is that you have made a typo. So just go and find it. Strings should always be the same color. Integers should always be the same color. Everything should be color-coded. And of course, so we've got ourselves an example of a print statement. Print it out, it will go and print. So now what we're going to showcase is how to use these things together. So if I say, and let me do this again, print, this is an example of a statement with a string of, and then I'm just going to put a comma in after this quote. And I'm going to go and say, example string. So what that comma does is it separates this section from this section. Okay? So when I execute it, it can put those two things together. This is an example of a statement of a string of, and then there's where my string was. There's where my variable was. So you're probably going, well, why can't I just, undo that? Because it doesn't work that way. It says invalid syntax. It can't do that. So the comma specifically separates items inside one another. Much like how before when I had, my, variable, and I had numerous things inside of it. I had, this guy, and then I had comma, this guy. It separates the different parts of the items. So I can store multiple things. Same situation here. You can have multiple things inside a print statement. You just need to separate them with a comma. You cannot, add them. You cannot do that. It will rarely work because the plus button does math. It does not do, just, attach this on the end. So now we'll do the same thing, but instead we'll do an integer with an integer of, and I'll just switch it to integer. And now I will execute it. And there we go. This is an example of an integer of 10. Now, once again, if I were to try to add a plus button here, it won't work. You will see this. You cannot concatenate string, not int, to string. Basically, it's telling me right here, this right here is a string. It's data, but it's a different type of data than an integer. I cannot add the number 10 to statement with an integer of. It doesn't work. It doesn't understand it. How do you add 5 to lightning bolt? It doesn't work. They're two different types of data. So you have to make sure you put those commas in. So let me put a float with a float of, comma, and in this case, I'll do example float. And then same thing over here. I will, print out that, but this time with a Boolean of example Boolean. And now it'll go execute, and I can go and say, this is a statement of a string of hello world with an integer of 10, with a float of 10.5, with a Boolean of true. Oops, and I forgot to put a little space there in between of and Boolean. Execute. And there it goes. It's working nice and fine. Once you get something that looks like this, go ahead and click those double dot buttons. Go to save or save as, and I'll name this as CSC151 example video, whatever, and I'll save it. You can save it as whatever you want. Save it. It'll save. You can save your project. You can upload the project, export it, or my other word of advice, if you don't want to deal with exporting, simply copy your code, paste it into a Word document, and submit the Word document to me. I can just copy it from the Word document and paste it straight back into JDoodle, and I can see if it'll work or not. So yeah, once you get that going, we'll move on to the next video where we will actually start doing a little bit of math with these guys, if I remember the next video correctly. It might not be the next video anymore as I switch this around, but we'll see. Thank you very much, and you guys have a great day. See you in the next video.